explain the manual to you, and you do all the work. And when you're so desperate and want to get rid of something so debilitating, like emetophobia, I would do anything. I would pay anything. Anything that they would tell me to do, I'd do it, because I wanted to get out of it so bad. So I found a coach. Her name was Sophie Lee from the UK. And she had the cutest accent. I felt like I was living in Harry Potter world the entire time that I was doing the sessions with her. And in only 8 weeks, I had gotten rid of my emetophobia. I actually did a testimonial video, and I filmed myself throughout these weeks because I was so skeptical. Like, super skeptical. I'm like, there's just no way. Like, I have been to every single therapist and psychologist possible in 19 years. How could you tell me that this works? And understanding that emetophobia does not come from a traumatic event. It's not like a regular phobia. And understanding that emetophobia is just a bad habit and a bad way of thinking. That was so shocking to me. It didn't click in my head at first. And also understanding that you are responsible for what you think. And you have the power to stop yourself from thinking things and from spiraling. I didn't understand how I didn't have anxiety anymore. Like, I was like, what? Like, I kind of felt like naked in a sense. Like, I was like looking for my clothes. Like, wait, why don't I feel anything? I don't feel like that anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, and I always like to tell people this program, that's called the Thrive program. It's not